Divine Predestination by Octavius Winslow from the late 1800s. There are no guesses, assumptions, or contingencies with God as to the future. Not only does He know everything, but He has fixed, appointed, and ordered everything in conformity with the purpose of His will. It would seem impossible to form any correct idea of God apart from the idea of predestination. The sole basis of predestination is the practical belief that God is eternal and infinite in absolutely everything. Predestination is God's predetermined selection and prearrangement of all things beforehand, according to His divine and supreme will. God prearranges, predetermines, and supremely rules all the matters and activities of our world. He creates and positions a constellation in the heavens. He guides the precise movements of a bird in the air. He directs the falling of an autumn leaf in a remote forest. And He moves every seed born upon the wind to the exact spot where He determines where it should fall. In predestination, we see the everlasting love of God and His supreme free choice when choosing His people to be His special and precious treasure. What doctrine is more humbling and therefore more sanctifying than predestination? It lays the axe at the root of all human boasting. In the light of this truth, the most holy believer sees that there is no difference between them and the most wicked sinner on the earth. Yet the sovereign grace of God has chosen him for eternal salvation. One blessing accruing from the doctrine of predestination is the sweet and holy submission into which it brings the mind under all painful periods of life. In each step of our pilgrimage and each incident of our history, we see, as believers, that we are elected, predestined into the everlasting covenant of grace. We recognize the discipline of the covenant to be as much a part of God's original plan as any positive mercy that it contains. That all the number of the hairs on our head are predetermined for each second of our life, and therefore is not the result of accident or chance, but is in harmony with God's purposes of love, and thus ordained and permitted, and which will always work together for our good. The joy and splendor which predestination reflects upon the entire history of the child of God, and the calm peacefulness that it disperses over the mind and all the perplexing, painful, and mysterious events of that history can only be understood by those whose hearts have fully received this doctrine of predestination. Whatever happens to true believers, mysterious in its character, enshrouded in the deepest gloom as may be the circumstance, the believer in this truth can stand still and calmly examine the scene and exclaim, "All this comes from the Lord Almighty, who is wonderful in counsel and magnificent in wisdom." The God who works out everything in conformity with the purposes of His will has done it, and I am satisfied that it is done well. Amen.